damaged.
My hope is to beat this thing called cancer. And it's even, I don't want to be too cocky about it, but it's even my expectation. My test results have been great up to now. And so we'll see how that plays out. My fear is that we haven't beat it, and I'll have to have additional treatments of some kind, whether they be chemo or what do they call it, hormone therapy. If I have to go there, I have to go there. But I'm really, you know what? I don't spend a lot of time thinking about prostate cancer. I really don't.
The fears, I would say, is quite easy. You don't want it to come back. The hopes are that I'll still be kicking around after 90 years.
Well, I hope to be able to continue to do what I'm doing now, which is to enjoy my family, spend time doing some of the things that I couldn't do while I was working, continuing with my running career, if you will.
My hope is that I can go peacefully with not too much pain. I know my cancer is back. But I don't know how long. So that's a fear. But I'm also, in a lot of ways, ready to go, if it's my time.
Well, my hope for the future is that I'll continue cancer-free. I am cancer-free today. And my other hope is to continue to help other people who get diagnosed, or those who even aren't diagnosed, who aren't aware that they should be doing a PSA and so on and so forth, but helping people along who encounter not just prostate cancer, but any other form of real serious illness, like cancer. In terms of fears, well, my biggest fear is that it will come back, but knock wood, so far I'm going okay.
It could show up in another organ of my body, whatever. I do know men that has happened to. Being part of a prostate cancer support group, I know it does happen. So that is a fear. And there's also sometimes a fear that, if I have the flu or something, like, is this something that, has this got something to do with cancer? Is it move someplace else? So that's my initial fear when I sort of look at this and think, no, let's be realistic here. No, that's not the case at all. But the fear for me never really totally goes away. It's always underlying.
My hope is that they have found a cure, or the cocktail of diet and lifestyle and medicine, that prostate cancer is not an issue by the time my son is in his 30s. That's my hope. My fear is that even though I went through the entire ordeal and I told everybody, I have over 1,300 friends on Facebook, 4,000 people on LinkedIn, and 5,000 people on my Hotmail, and I told everybody, man, woman, and child, go get tested. Tell your husband, tell your son, tell your boyfriend, go, go, go. My fear is people won't get the message. I want people to get the message that you need to go and get your digital rectal exam and your PSA. It costs $50 in Ontario. Wherever you are, spend the money and get it done. It'll save your life. It did mine.
Don't take everything that people bring by. I have very many well-meaning people who are bringing remedies by. Oh, Jack, you've got it. You absolutely have to take this. It's 3 times a day, 2 teaspoons a day. It's going to cure you. Really, and who's recommending it? Oh, well, it was recommended from a friend who's connected to the medical system in India. Oh, really? And there was a guy 10 years ago who did this, and he was completely cured. A guy. Okay, really? Do you have his name? Well, no, I heard about it through this friend. Oh, Is there any medical certification for any of this? You know, the doctors don't really know what they're talking about, Jack. You want to be taking this. I insist that you try it. It's going to cure you. I can't tell you how many of these, and sometimes they come and they leave them on our front doorstep. I make a habit of checking everything with my medical team, and just to make sure. And they encourage the alternative therapy. So when my mother-in-law, who lives with us, feeds me these amazing Chinese soups from 10,000 years of Chinese woman's wisdom being passed down, I eat them. I wouldn't survive in the household if I didn't, but there's no question that's helping, and the ginsengs and the various basic ones that we all know about, we certainly turn to those. And maybe it just gives you a little, mental boost as well.
I looked at one place in the States. I thought, oh boy, I'll be able to take my RV down there and I'll just stay there for 2 weeks. They're going to cure my cancer and I'll come back. I honestly had lulled myself into some kind of delusion that I could get this thing dealt with more easily in the United States in some town that I'd never heard of. And it took my wife and several doctors and friends to bring me down to earth and say, Tim, we have the tools, we can do the job, just let us do it right here in Ontario.
Early detection can prevent some of those more grim diagnoses, although it still means you're going to go through some treatments that can be difficult.
I knew my father had it, and he told me his father died of it in his 50s. My father was diagnosed in 1992, and supposedly this is 1 year after the PSA test came online in Quebec. So had the PSA test not come online, he wouldn't have known, even though his father had it before him. I don't believe he was checking for it. So listen, the fact that he had it, and his father had it, I knew I was in line, and I started PSA testing and having digital rectal exams from the age of 35, which to conventional wisdom is 15 years too soon, but hindsight being 2020, it worked out well for me and my brother, who is 3 years my junior. He's been testing since.
Have a positive attitude about what the outcome is going to be and what the future is going to hold, and make sure you rally your family around you. Make sure you rally whatever support you can, whether it's family, friends, strangers, it doesn't really matter. There's a world of support out there. Some of the people you talk to who've had prostate cancer will have had good outcomes, some will have had poor outcomes. It doesn't matter. The majority will have positive outcomes, and that's just going to help to help you preserve your sanity and stay focused on the positive outcome you're going to have.
Keep as much of a positive outlook on it as you can, and just say to yourself, I can beat this. Whether you can or not doesn't really matter. It's the fact that you're going to try.
But they should realize that it's not something that they alone are dealing with. There's an awful lot of men out there that have dealt with it before them. There's a lot of good information out there.
Prostate cancer is not a death sentence unless you don't act upon the options given to you. Faith and fear can't live in the same heart at the same time. So you have to decide in that moment whether you're going to have faith that you're going to come through this and survive, or whether you're going to have fear and you're going to let it overwhelm you and take over your life and ruin yourself and your family. So faith is belief in action. So I took action by going to the support group, by educating myself with the doctors, by talking to naturopathic doctors as well. I got as much information as I could, and then I looked for the best of the best in their field.
I broke my back in a car accident when I was a young man, and they told me then I'd never walk again. And so I've faced adversity, and I think that sort of I learned some lessons from that I brought with me towards this situation that I find myself in with prostate cancer. And I that's my way of dealing with it, is not to ring the alarm bell. You know, it's to inform the people that should be informed, and not really too many more people. You know, I didn't want to broadcast it.
View it as a challenge, not a problem. and keep an open mind, keep a positive outlook, regardless of how dire the outlook may seem to be or may be presented to them. There's always hope. The last thing you want to remove from anyone is hope.
Yes, I was diagnosed, or perhaps you are going to be diagnosed with prostate cancer, but there is hope. And that hope can come through medical treatment, through supportive friends, through a faith community, through support, through prostate cancer support groups. That, I think, is what men need to know. The fact is that they're not alone and that there is hope out there.
Of staying on top of it, making the you in charge of the cancer as opposed to the cancer in charge of you. You don't cease to exist as an individual when you have a diagnosis of cancer. The cancer can't redefine you. You have to put it aside and make it something that you can beat, or that you can overcome or control, and that it's not going to redefine your whole life.
I think a support network is absolutely vital, that you can't do this on your own. So don't even try. And give up your precious male pride and ask for help, and you will receive it.
Actually, I've more than doubled the amount of time I've been here. And I'm going to continue to fight even though my cancer is back, which is why I'm keeping on top of it right now, to see what we can do. But I'm not going to go necessarily the same routes that I went before. So once again, I'm now going to try and find some more information on new things that I can do to challenge and fight back.
The hospitals and doctors are there to do the surgery, do the treatments, do the hormones, but I think society and families are the ones that do the healing.
Making sure you set yourself goals every day for what you're going to achieve after you have your surgery. For example, one of my goals is when I came out of hospital to come in the house here and to walk up the steps, and we have about 20 steps from the first floor to the second floor. And not just to walk up the steps, to do it on my own without even holding on to the rail. And that's what I did. And then the next day I kind of walked up and down once, and then the day after that twice, and the day after that 3 times, plus walk around upstairs and so on. Setting goals like that for yourself, or targets to achieve every day.
There was a prostate cancer support group that met once a month and recommended that told me when the next meeting was, and recommended that I come, and I absolutely, I got so much comfort, even from that initial drop in at the Wellspring Center. But when I got in and was, to the first prostate meeting, it was like, wow, I'm not alone. This is good, And there's guys that were, most of the guys there had progressed further along the path. They'd had their treatments and were, most of them were having nice recoveries. Some of them had been treated years ago and were having good health ever since. So it's a wonderful buoying effect on my spirits. And so I thought, you know what, I can do this.
And so having a few friends that are very close to you on the journey, in the technical sense, Olivia's with me at every single appointment. And I recommend that if somebody's watching this video who doesn't have prostate cancer but believes that it could be a possibility in the family or is a possibility, it's so helpful to the patient to have somebody there who's thinking about the questions and helping digest and helping with the research. And use the tools that are available. Use your friends. Don't be afraid to ask. They're probably wishing you had asked.
Shortly after I was diagnosed, I went to one. My urologist told me about the group. I went to one of their meetings, and the one thing that struck me was they were all happy. So it kind of hit me, well, if they can go through it and all come out that happy, what's wrong with me? I can do as well. So I can as well. As a result of that, my fear of it actually went down considerably. Because the one thing with getting over, I think, any kind of cancer is 60% of your recovery and your success in getting over it is your own mental attitude towards it. If you let it get to you, it'll have a nice time. But if you fight it, you'll win. That's the way I look at it. Or at least if you don't win, you'll know you gave it a good shot.
We shared it with the family. We all talked about it. We started keeping records like that. We started keeping a logbook. And this logbook, if you go back through it, some of it's pretty humorous, some's not. But it's a good way of dealing with it.
Other than getting that knowledge, it's positive attitude and stay in contact with your doctor and get your annual checkups and pay attention.
The one thing that you have to bear in mind is that when you go to your doctor, urologist or any other kind of cancer specialist, they can only tell you and they will only focus on the medical side of things. You see very little written about the non-medical side of what you have to go through. Minor things, that you would never think of, or that the doctors don't think of telling you. For example, the catheter, it'll be 30 seconds of whatever the surgeon is going to tell you. When in actual fact, that is the one thing that you have to really and truly focus your mind on for when you wake up. But they don't think of it because they've never been through it. So you get a lot about the medical, but you get very little about the non-medical side of it. And when I say non-medical, I'm talking about not even including side effects of anything. Just general day-to-day what you're going to have to face.
I was using a catheter that was generally in practice in the hospital, that there's a part of the catheter that allows for the drainage from inside that's inserted in you that seemed to have little barbs on it because it wasn't finished very well. Because of course it was inexpensive. And on putting it in and pulling it out, it was like with a fish hook. And with the new tissue, that was extremely painful and uncomfortable. So after a while, I said there had to be a better way. And I started asking questions and found the variety of catheters that were available in the marketplace, and decided it didn't matter the cost. I needed to have less damage and more comfort when I was catheterizing.
PSA is simply an indicator, and it is not the final diagnosis. You still have to go through all the other exams and the biopsies to figure out how bad it actually is. And then I think that the biopsies, I think, are one of the more accurate methods of finding out whether or not how severe it is.
Is first of all, don't smoke. I'm not so sure that has a great deal of effect on prostate cancer. I'm sure it does, because it does affect other cancers. I think also looking at one's health, like in other words, I think that we somewhat intuitively do know what we are doing to our bodies, and therefore deal with what you believe is not beneficial for yourself, whether you need to exercise more, whether you need to eat less or whatever. Like, I think that there is something intuitively that we really do know, but yet we don't do it. And I believe that that's what we really need to look at more than anything.
And we've cut back a lot on some of these foods, vegetables, fruits that may have pesticides on them, or we're doing a lot more cleaning. We've changed the diet a lot.
Diet and exercise, two important things. And stay away from things like red meat and that sort of stuff. Mental, always have a positive attitude in those things. Anyone who diagnosed with cancer, absolutely you have to have a positive attitude towards it.
The two things that I would tell people from a non-medical point of view is, and I think this applies to all cancers, is there's no doubt in my mind nowadays that we should be very careful and make sure that we are eating the right sort of foods and diet, and have a good diet. I think that's very important. I think people tend to underestimate how much of our foodstuffs could in fact be causing cancers, not just prostate cancer. I think the second thing is people need to remember to keep fit. The fitter you are, the better your immune system is. The better your immune system is, the more likelihood you have of shrugging these diseases off. Your body needs to be fit. Your system needs to be able to take the dead cells and throw them away. And it's the dead cells that cause the prostate cancer or cause any form of cancer. They multiply and eventually become cancerous. If you're fit, if your body's working more or less the way it should, then I think you have the best chance going that you won't develop these diseases.
But don't design your own exercise routine. Do a little research. I changed my routine completely so that I could be doing the right things. And fortunately, Princess Margaret has this marvelous survivorship program that has, and they've been doing very careful research as to what kinds of exercise, at what stages, for what treatment modalities, and that research is ongoing. This is the kind of, that's what gets funded by these motorcycle rides and all these mustaches in the month of November and the runs that happen. This is exactly what's being funded, and I can tell you from personal experience that is improving my quality of life and probably the length of my life as well.
Yes, I've changed some of my diet, but not excessively so, mostly because I feel the quality of life that you have left is, to me, far more important than the quantity of life. And the better quality you can put your life into through some better eating, some exercise, looking after yourself physically, I truly believe in look good, feel better. It's not my motto but one I've adapted to. And it's worked really, really well.
And I think you have to be comfortable with the person doing the operation.
We don't really look at our bodies. We look at them, we don't treat them with the same respect as what women do. And how do we educate men at an early age to start appreciating their bodies and working with their bodies, paying attention to their bodies, the awareness and whatever that perhaps can prevent cancers, heart diseases, or whatever. That's what I would like to see. Somehow, men becoming more educated and aware.
You know, we're polluting this planet at a ferocious rate, and it is causing more cancers. I have no doubt about that. Dave Suzuki sent me an email when he heard of my diagnosis and said, you know, it's terrible news, I hope you get well, but if we stopped treating the planet as a garbage dump, you know, nature wouldn't be striking us back in the same way. And I think he speaks the truth. Some of the links haven't been directly drawn, so companies are out there profiteering, sometimes without having done the research, a lot of the time, so that we could know with certainty what the multi-generational impacts are going to be. And I have no doubt that the pesticide, you know, my dad was a golfer. He used to have me, you know, we would be putting DDT on the dandelions in our lawn in the 50s, you know, watching the ads of the happy couple. Well, you know, 40 years later, is that what's giving us breast cancer and prostate cancer? Who knows?
Be prepared that things may not always go the way you want them to, and to remain as focused on one foot in front of the other as you go. Because it's a journey where we really don't know the end. But it is a journey, and it's one you will take with those around you. Be aware of those around you and their feelings, and respect them, and hope that they will respect yours.